I'm going to talk to you about learning and learning in the 21st century. And looking at that, when I see 21st century learning, it looks to me like it's old, boring and dull, like it's not in the 21st century whatsoever. It's kind of like we talk about the words, using the word 21st century, it's like even that itself seems so outdated, you know. But But today, the times we're living in exponential times, like the amount of information we're taking in, the amount of stuff going on in the world is huge. Huge. Look at this I found a couple of things on the internet, which, check this out. It's estimated that 4 exabytes, I don't even know what exabytes are, but I get they're huge, like absolutely massive, of unique information was generated in 2009. Now, because we don't really know what exabytes are, we kind of don't really know what that is, but when you look at that was more than in the previous 5,000 years, I think, well, that's kind of a lot of information that's speeding up right now that we're taking in and learning everywhere. The amount of technical information is doubling every 2 years. Think about our brains trying to take all this stuff in. You were just hearing before. Our brains are trying to receive all this information. And what I'm going to talk to you about today is conventional schooling, conventional learning, I believe is dead. And I'm not the only one to say it, and it's not the first time it's been talked about at TED. But it's on the way out. The conventional learning at school or at universities is based on a one-size-fits-all model. And we as humans aren't a one-size-fits-all. We're all different, we learn in different ways. Some learn through reading, some learn visually, some learn through doing things. Why is conventional schooling dead? Because it doesn't produce the innovators, the leaders and entrepreneurs we need today with what's happening in the world. With all this new information that's happening, the speed that everything's doubling, we need to think differently. And we need to realize that we learn differently. So, action learning, which I'm going to talk to you about today, is the new black. I love it. It's how I learn. It's how pretty much what I do every day, all day, is learning through actions. Action learning is the things where it's act and reflect. So it's a simple act of doing something and then reflecting, how did that go? How did that make me feel? How did that make the other person feel? Did it produce a result? Did I fail? What's the learning from that? Action learning. But things are changing. I'm going to tell you a little project we did this year with the organisation I run. It's called Design for Change. We run it in primary schools across Australia with students around the 10 to 12 age. And the whole thing with Design for Change is that the students get to come up with a community project that's important to them. The thing is, one idea, 1 week, to change 1 billion lives. This project actually started in India last year. The lady Kiran Burseth, the founder, spoke at TED India. This year there's 20 countries around the world participating with an estimated 250,000 students. The way students learn through this program, students like yourself get to take the project on themselves. They come up with the idea of what they want to do, what's important to them, what bothers them. They drive the project. They own the project. This is some students from Antonio Park Primary School. They're the winners of Design for Change. You can't see the photo too well. It's actually incredibly dark. But these students, they really cared about the children who were sick in hospital. So they came up with an idea. They're like, okay, what can we do to help these kids? So they called up the hospital and said, hey, look, we want to help out. We want to do something. We want to create a project. What can we do? First step of action learning. They're in action already. Then they found out, the hospital said, well, what you could do is you could make some toys. You could come decorate the place. You could spend some time with the kids. So, okay, great. Let's go off. Let's do it. They went to their school community. They raised some money. They talked at assemblies. They raised awareness. They bought materials. They bought toys, decorated them. In the photos you can't really see because it's dark, but they've got a whole lot of toys, a whole lot of stuff that they then went to the Box Hill Hospital in Melbourne and decorated the hospital and spent time with the kids. The teachers talked about these kids as they didn't want to leave. They didn't want to go home at night because they wanted to stay here and do this. Because they got to own it, they got to drive it. It was their project, not the teacher telling them what to do. As I said, 20 countries around the world, 500 kids in Australia, and an estimated 250,000 kids around the world. So as times are changing, so is the way we're learning. Now, as I said before, I learn through action learning. I'm a big action learner. I love it. I breathe it. I've been participating I'm a student actually with the School for Social Entrepreneurs. Now, when you hear school, you might think of a normal classroom, and some of you probably don't even know what a social entrepreneur is. So you're probably like, what is this thing? You know, maybe it's just that same kind of conventional learning. But it's not. It's not the conventional learning whatsoever, and that's why I love it. We might have someone come into the classroom who's a CEO of an organisation, who's been running it for many years, someone who's set up a number of organisations, or someone who's in their newly placed spot. They might talk to us for 10 minutes about what they do. For the other 40 minutes, we get to drill them with questions. Asking them things about what is it for us. Like, we've got to think for ourselves, what is it for me that's going to make the difference that I need to learn? The thing I need to learn so I can get my project going. Ask them about failures. Ask them the deep questions. We take that information, then we go out into the real world and implement that with our projects. And I'll give you some examples later. This was the thing I grabbed off the website though of this School for Social Entrepreneurs, and I love it. It's a little bit about them. We create a climate and structure which is developmental and practical rather than academic. But the part I love is this bottom line, one which adapts to meet the needs of each student. Now, I think that's beautiful. I really do, because conventional learning is that one-size-fits-all model, where we have at school with kids failing, and then they start thinking that they're not smart and they can't do it. But no, learning isn't adapted to them. It's the one-size-fits-all model. But action learning and the School for Social Entrepreneurs adapts to meet the needs of each student, because we all learn differently. We all need different things. So action learning is a cycle. Act. Do something in the world. Recall, reflect. How'd that go? Did it work? Did it not? Insights. What can I do different this time? Next step, get back into action, do it. And then undertake action. And then goes around in a circle. Okay? And it just goes. And so with me, I'll share some examples later, but I love it because it's basically every moment, every interaction you have with someone, you can walk away and reflect. How did that go? It's like after this talk, I'm going to go away straight away and go, how did that go? What could I have done differently? What didn't I do right? How can I learn from that? I'm going to talk about women's menstruation, and it's a kind of icky topic, and I wanted to kind of break the ice, and because I'm a guy talking about it, it kind of makes it even weirder. People kind of ask, how do you feel talking about it? And it's like, but no, we're going to break the taboo. Because there is a serious side. There is a serious side to this all. Every 28 days, approximately 3 billion women around the world menstruate. You might think, so what? Yeah, okay. For many of these women who are living in developing countries, such as Africa, places like Sierra Leone, they use newspaper, tree bark and dirty cloth to manage their period. So while we might think about women's menstruation as a funny thing or a frustrating thing for guys, it's actually quite a serious issue for women around the world living in developing countries. Girls living in Sierra Leone, I'm just going to take this country as an example. Many of them will miss 1 week of school every month because of their period. Because they don't have anything to manage their period. 1 week of school every month. Now, if you keep missing 1 week of school every month, you're going to fall behind. And a lot of these girls do. And then they end up dropping out. Because the learning over there is rote learning. The classrooms are big, and if you're not there to do your learning, well, you miss out. That's it. In places like Sierra Leone, menstruation means inequality. But not anymore. Because with Launchpad, we're creating a business which provides low-cost sanitary pads to women and girls in developing countries. Employing local women, training them up, and providing this for them. Not only is it going to help with hygiene issues, such as cervical cancer, but it also helps getting girls back into school. And there's Sierra Leone, which is where we're going to be working in this year, or next year. So you might think, okay, so now I told you about a project, and how do I use action learning within my project? Okay, this year we came up with the idea. We were actually in Africa at the time. One, acting, speaking with the local people, finding out what it is they need, what are the issues they face. Then we learned, okay, we've got this idea, but what do we do with it? We had to come up with a feasibility study. So we went out, okay, great, then we start doing a feasibility study. We did a business plan. We'd go back into the School for Social Entrepreneurs and we'd be like, okay, great, we've done this stuff, now what? And then we'd have some speaker in, then we'd learn, okay, we've got to get volunteers. So we go racing out, we go get volunteers. And we go, okay, now what do we do? Well, we actually got to do some surveys to justify that, yes, this is actually a real case and that people over there, these girls and women, do need these sanitary pads. So then we got our team over there doing the surveys. Each step of the way is learning. Each step of the way. So as I said at the beginning, conventional learning is dead. It's out. Action learning is the new black. And that's my take on 20th century learning.